Well, that's the information that we'll be seeking from AquaGib. Obviously, that's what's happened, and now our priority right now is restoring water to Gibraltar. Once this is over, then we'll have to have a thorough investigation into what happened, why it happened, and how we can have other contingency measures in place to avoid this happening again.
You say that that's the measures, that's the information you sought from AquaGib, but of course the government is in charge of providing, of ensuring that the population has water and knows where those plants are, that it has given the contractor AquaGib for. So in terms of the government responsibility to look into how this could have happened, will there be some sort of inquiry? What lessons will be learned?
We'll look at it from a civil contingencies point of view, most certainly, because the government contracts with AquaGib to provide to the public, to provide water supply. So our questions as part of that investigation, particularly going forward, is to look at business continuity measures when issues like this arise.
In terms of the fire itself, the contents of those tunnels have turned out to be highly flammable. Has it been a case of out of sight, out of mind, with these areas close to vital pipes and cables used to store a great manner of things?
Again, it's something that we are going to look at, and certainly look at how things are stored, and ensuring that we have the information as to where things are stored and how they are stored. This is
government storage, though.
This is government storage. I'm looking at these things from a civil contingencies point of view, and again, it's one of the lessons that we are going to learn from this. So as soon as this is over, we're going to have a very important debrief to look at lessons that can be learned, and how we can preserve our infrastructure going forward.
In terms of taking precautions against something like this happening, was a fire risk assessment carried out in that area, and what were its conclusions?
It's not something that I'm aware of right now, because right now our priority is looking at what's happening on the ground, and the priority is to restore water to the people of Gibraltar. So while we're here, when we meet, and we're meeting twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, we're receiving updates, and when we receive updates from the fire service, we receive an update on the status of the fire. And when we receive updates from AquaGib, the update is in relation as to what's happening on the ground now and how soon water can be restored. There is no time at the moment to look at what's gone wrong and how we can improve it. We will do that as soon as possible, but right now the priority is to make sure that we're back online.
And in terms of those questions that need to be answered, is there not one of security? A man has claimed that he's been entering the tunnel, and the fire and rescue services said that the fire must have been started by someone due to the lack of electricity in the area, whether accidentally or intentionally. Is there not a question of security here, and does this expose the vulnerability of Gibraltar's infrastructure?
What's happened at the moment is the subject of a criminal investigation. So we'll have to await the outcome of that in parallel, obviously without compromising the criminal investigation. Obviously, again, it's things that we need to look at to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again.
This is going to be an expensive operation, what with the water being brought in, the infrastructural works, the human resources needed in order to tackle this. Who will be footing the bill for this?
We'll have to look at it, but primarily this is an issue of water supply by AquaGib, so we'll be looking at AquaGib. This is an issue of the continuity of supply with the government's contractor to supply water to the people of Gibraltar.
Are you suggesting that it will be AquaGib rather than the taxpayer?
Right now, because our priority is to make sure that we have all hands on deck and that we restore water to Gibraltar, it's something that we haven't looked at in detail, of course, but as soon as time permits, we'll look at that properly as well.
And in terms of the operation that's currently ongoing, can you give us an idea of how the next few days are likely to pan out?
So the water pressure, we're advised by AquaGib, is fluctuating, and a lot of it depends on the pressure that's available while the reserves and the stocks fill up. So we have a combination of reserves being depleted during the time that the reverse osmosis plant was not producing any water, and the very high consumption that we have at this time of year. What AquaGib were doing in order to restore that was cutting water off at night, as you know. Now, some people have not had water during the day, and that's not because it's been cut off, but rather because the water pressure is not there, because the tanks are empty. It means that the water in the network doesn't get to the tap to where it needs to. So in order to be able to restore that water pressure and restore the water that's in the network, it's very important that we all while AquaGib and all the technical services are undertaking the repair works that need to be done, and they're working on the bypass pipes, and they're also working in conjunction with the MOD so that we can obtain water supply from there, it's also very important that people do not use water for anything other than what is essential in the coming days, because we need to be able to minimize the use of water so that we can replenish the stocks and, more importantly, replenish the water pressure.
What time frame do you envisage this happening within?
It's not something that I can answer because that's a technical question. We are briefed by AquaGib on a daily basis, twice a day. The advice that we receive changes. We expected it to have been restored by now, but there have been other complications, which means that it hasn't been able to be restored as soon as we would have wanted it to be. So we're making contingency measures on the one hand to reduce the use of water. We've limited the high users of water on the one hand, we have restrictions on the other, and everybody at AquaGib and technical services and everyone involved is working as soon as possible to be able to repair the problem as soon as they can.